last time Alabama entered the Iron Bowl with 2 losses was way back in 2010, and it was an all-timer with Cam Newton leading Auburn back from 24 down on their way to a national title. That's also the last time Auburn won in Tuscaloosa, and they've fired 3 head coaches since. Gene Chizik, Gus Malzahn, and now Brian Harsin, who was let go after a 3-5 start this season. Former Tiger great Cadillac Williams was named interim head coach, thought of only as a placeholder. But who knows what could change if he leads the Tigers to a win over the Tide.
We are going to play football, Auburn football. And whether that's Dallas Cowboys, University of Alabama, great Nick Saban, man, these kids not going to blink. We not blinking.
Interim, inexperienced coach on one side and the greatest of all time on the other. Nick Saban won his first national title when Cadillac was starring in the Auburn backfield. Saban has won 6 more with Alabama, but after 15 years, there's now some uncertainty about whether the dynasty and the dominance might be coming to an end. Saban is under contract through 2030, but he'll be losing 2 of the top players in college football. Bryce Young and Will Anderson playing their final game at Bryant-Denny Stadium, and perhaps their final college game period, with opt-outs looming for a likely non-playoff bowl game.
This is one of the biggest ones, and it means a lot to a lot of people in our state. It means a lot to us, our players, and our fans, and we're going to do the best job we can to get ready for this game.
It might not have SEC or playoff implications, but it's still the Iron Bowl, and it's on CBS.
And someone who will be on the call for the iconic Iron Bowl, which is also our SEC on CBS Game of the Week, Gary Danielson. Hey there, Gary. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, Jacqueline. Happy Thanksgiving to you as you get into this busy weekend.
Yes, you as well. So, Gary, the Iron Bowl has produced just some crazy moments. The kick 6, I remember watching that live and freaking out. The 4 OTs in 2021. But Gary, just tell us the importance of this matchup despite not having SEC or national championship implications this time around.
Yeah, I've been so lucky. I've been doing this. It'll be my 17th year at CBS, and I think we've done 15 of these. And this game has meant so much, not just in state to the 2 programs and their fans, but many, many of these games have meant, national championship considerations at the end of these football games. And they've been so close, and great football players who ended up playing in the NFL. And, it's not just been a rivalry of good players. It's been a rivalry of great players and great games. And the consequences of the game, and that's how we usually measure this, does the game matter to a lot of people? And that's important. And then on top of that, how much it matters to these players. But the shadow of these endings, as you just mentioned, the kick 6 and the overtime game just recently, just makes the game, so much more, especially on this end of the season when everybody's so geared up to watch football, and especially college football.
15 Iron Bowls. That is quite the resume there, Gary. So last year's Heisman Trophy winner, Bryce Young, want to talk more about this, likely playing in his final Iron Bowl. Now, he's thrown for at least 1 touchdown in every game that he started. That's 25 games, the longest streak at Bama, passing Tua at 24. I mean, Gary, pretty good company to be in there.
Boy, I will say, this Alabama team has had so many great players, but recently they've changed a little bit. When Tua came in and now Bryce Young, they just changed their style. In between, Jalen Hurts was kind of that, quarterback that could do a lot of things. But these guys are such gifted passers. Tua first and now Bryce Young. And Bryce has done it. His leadership and his calmness. We saw it last year in this Iron Bowl where the whole game he got, smashed. I think, 7 sacks, I think, in the game. And he gets the ball late in the game. They had to go 92 yards, by the way. And he did it, with about $1:30 on the clock. They ran 12 plays in that drive. But his excellence, and had he not gotten nicked this year, I really believe him getting hurt and he came back in that Tennessee game, I still think Alabama will be looking at a possibility of getting into the national championship. But don't say too fast. that it couldn't happen. A couple of few losses, and I've seen it happen before. I was there in 2007 when LSU had no chance and they got there. So college football's crazy and nobody's out of it. For Auburn's side, coming back, what a game, and a competitive game like this, considering where they were, 4 games ago and where they are now. You can just feel the pride in Auburn is back, and they want to have a good finish this season.
Yeah, and Gary, let's talk a little bit more about the Tigers winning back-to-back games, including that win over Texas A&M. It kind of seems like since Cadillac Williams has taken over as interim there, Auburn is playing with a little bit more energy overall, Gary.
Yeah. I don't know what's going to happen, whether Cadillac will be named the head coach, if he's the right man to be the next head coach at Auburn. But I will say this, he's the perfect man to have stepped in for Auburn football, where they were starting to look around and go, is Auburn football the same as it was when we really cared about each other and we played tough football? And there could not have been anywhere a better person to step in right now and get Auburn back into being proud of who they are and where they might take this football team in the future. So again, that head coaching thing will take its own life. But, 4 weeks ago when he was named a head coach, you could not search worldwide to find anybody better for Cadillac. And
Auburn hasn't won 3 straight games in about 2 years, so we will see what happens there. Bama, the heavy favorite here at -22, over at 49. Bama leads the series, or the all-time series, Gary, 48, 37, and 1. Are you siding with the Crimson Tide, or are you going with Auburn for the upset? As I've said, I've done this 15 times, and I've become smart enough not to predict these games. Listen, if Auburn's going to win this game, they're going to have to do it in a style where they hold the ball and keep the ball away from Bryce Young. A defensive effort like they had a year ago when they really manhandled this offensive line for Alabama would be helpful. But, Alabama saw that game tape too. They've been in a little bit shocked that they feel they have a national championship team that may not get a chance to play for the national championship, and they're down about it. And they want to take it out on Auburn. So, hey, both teams have their pride. And that's what I love about college football. I played it and now I've covered it. And I know when you get in that huddle together with guys you love and you fought with for 3, 4, 5 years, off season, summers, and all through the season, you don't want to let the guy down next to you. So it should be a great football game. All right. That is Gary Danielson joining us here on HQ. Thank you so much, Gary, and have fun this weekend at the game. You got it. Everybody kept quiet in the background, so I'm happy about that. Yeah, kudos to them. And Gary Danielson leaving the door open for Bama to potentially make the college football playoff. But how could that happen? Chip Patterson joins us with more on the other side.
Well, we didn't have to wait for double overtime of a college hoops game to get the latest college football playoff rankings this week. Not a ton of suspense, though. Top 4 remain intact, although Michigan and TCU survived late in their games to remain undefeated. Tennessee's blowout loss to South Carolina means LSU and USC each move up a spot and look to pounce on potential losses from the teams ahead of them. All right, to break it down, we've got Chip Patterson of the Cover 3 podcast. Now, we did see on that graphic, Chip, that Bama still at 7. And although there is some Alabama fatigue, if I'm to pin you and ask you about a path here for the Crimson Tide to get to the college football playoff, what path would that be?
Listen, it is a path that is not realistic because you are asking for all of the worst scenarios to happen in the Pac-12. You are asking for all of the worst scenarios to happen in the Big 12. You are asking for the kind of situation where whatever the Ohio State-Michigan result is, it is so lopsided that we're going to take the loser and we're going to throw them all the way behind the Crimson Tide. I just don't see a way that Alabama makes its way into the top 4. And that is an incredible backdrop for a Crimson Tide program that for so long has played games with national championship implications. More often than not, and in fact, most of the games that Alabama has played since the 2008 season under Nick Saban have carried some weight in terms of the competition for the national championship. But I think that with 2 losses, one of them coming to a Tennessee team that just got blasted by South Carolina, one of them coming, yes, at LSU, I think that this non-division, non-conference champ would require all kinds of chaos to be able to see all of those teams in front of them fall behind the Crimson Tide. There are statements that are going to be able to be made on Conference Championship Saturday that Alabama is not going to be able to say, not going to be able to have. And there are wins here in the final games of the regular season against ranked opponents that Alabama is not going to be able to have. So in a way that is very great for college football, we do get to see truly pride is the greatest thing at stake in one of the great rivalries in the entire sport.
Yeah, it's interesting, and there's always expectations in Tuscaloosa, no doubt about it. But last year was sort of the we're going to be okay year, and they went far all the way to the national championship game. They had all the expectations this year, and they've had a couple of losses, of course, and it's been a wild ride for Nick Saban. You mentioned the pride. Iron Bowl's nearly upon us here, Chip. Predicting that moment, though, where do you think it's going to come from this weekend?
I think it's going to come from the defensive side of the ball. And this is an Alabama defense that, while it did get shredded by Tennessee earlier in the year, they have lived up to the reputation of a group that is very, very strong. And I think that Alabama defense is going to be the side of all the 4 units on the field that I have the most confidence in. Auburn is a very one-dimensional team offensively, and that's going to set up a lot of 3rd and long scenarios. And a 3rd and long scenario means that Will Anderson, number 31, is going to absolutely feast here in Thanksgiving week in that backfield for the Auburn Tigers. He is really working with an interesting motivation angle because Nick Saban has this program to a place where he doesn't shy away from NFL draft stock. What do your players have left to play for? He discusses that you are going to be on tape. You are going to be graded. He wants as many Alabama players to be drafted as highly as possible, and he treats his players like men who know that they are going to be graded based on these performances, whether they are whether they come in games with national championship implications or not. And I think that this sets up for a huge day for the Alabama defense. I think Will Anderson, in all likelihood, playing his final game at Bryant-Denny Stadium. I think that he has a terrific day, a couple of sacks, a couple tackles for loss. Number 31 is all over the field, and we're reminded just how special of a defensive talent that he is.
All right, Chip, before I let you go, I got to get your pick against the spread on this one. Again, it's north of 3 touchdowns, but we've seen this Tiger team look like it's really playing for Cadillac Williams since Brian Harsin left the equation. But will it be enough to keep this a close game and within the number, you think?
I don't think so. If you want to take Alabama, maybe you hope that there's some family feels and that number ticks down to 21 before you fire on it. But I would not recommend taking Auburn. I would lay the points with Alabama. And then I go back to the one part of this game that I feel the strongest about, which is that Alabama's defense is going to be able to rule the day. Even if Auburn's defense comes out really motivated, Bryce Young has another uncharacteristically inconsistent type of performance, Alabama will run the ball. This is a Crimson Tide team that when things are not clicking, when things are not going well, they would prefer to run the football and play defense back to just the good old-fashioned, X's and O's of the early Nick Saban Alabama teams. So I like Alabama minus the points. Would love it more at 21, obviously, but do not want any piece of Auburn. And then I do like the under, especially as we've got it right there at the key number of 49.
Quickly, Chip, where does the Iron Bowl rank for you in the Chip Patterson rivalry rankings?
I am dating myself a little bit, but so much of my professional career here at CBS has been these thrillers. Like I was working for CBS when Cam led the comeback in 2010, the kick six in 2013, Gus Malzahn getting his team off the mat in 2017, and then Bryce Young basically setting up a Heisman Trophy win with what happened in 2020. I've been here covering the college football as a whole, but specifically the Southeastern Conference for so many of the greatest moments in this rivalry's history. So consider me recency bias, but I need to at least let you know what my biases are, because my experience here is that the Iron Bowl is the best in the game.
All right, Chip Patterson breaking it down, getting us ready for the SEC game of the week. Chip, certainly appreciate it. A couple of Iron Bowl notes for you as you get ready and take a look at streaming on Paramount Plus for you this weekend. Bama's won the last 2. Crimson Tide have won the last 5 home meetings, and they lead the series 10-5 under Nick Saban. That's tied for most losses against any team with LSU. Then there's the Cover 3 podcast, which Chip Patterson's a part of, with Tom Fornelli, Danny Cannell, and Bud Elliott. They discuss the updated CFP rankings. LSU checking in at number 5 ahead of USC, and then breaking down the path for Clemson to find its way back. Clemson trailing Bama in the latest ranking.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.